Hi, my name's Aidan O'Rourke, photographer of cities, and I'm out and about in the city and the surrounding area. Today I'm here in Bramall Park, and I'm going to do one of my informal photography tutorials, my out and about tutorials, and the subject of this one is going to be direction of the light. Now, it's not a very exciting subject, but it is very, very important, and I have some things to say about it. So listen carefully, and here we go. This is my very first tutorial, by the way, so wish me luck. Direction of the light is extremely important if you're taking pictures of cities, of buildings, which is something that I've done for many years. And in none of the online tutorials about taking buildings have I ever seen anybody ever say how important it is to shoot buildings at the right time of day. Because buildings generally look best in direct sunlight with no shadows on the facade and with the light coming from either behind the photographer or to one side. So why is it that buildings look better when they're taken in direct sunlight with the sun behind? Well, because when the sun falls on the facade, it lights up the facade and the colours are brighter, more saturated. And if there's a blue sky, that blue sky will be darker because the building will be bright, and that brightness makes the sky more underexposed. If there are cloudy conditions, then the facade will tend to look dull, but it's still best to try and photograph with the sun behind you, even if it's above the clouds. If you try taking a picture of a building and the sun is behind the building and you're pointing the camera towards the building, the facade is going to be in shadow, which means that it's going to be very dark, the sky is going to be very light, and so often all you can do is expose for the sky, in which case the building facade will be very dark, or you can expose for the building facade, but then the sky will be completely burnt out and white. Sometimes it's not possible to avoid it, but that's why it's better to wait for the right time of day. So let's have a look at a few examples of buildings with taking photographs from my archive. And this is the old fire station in Manchester. It faces roughly towards the southeast, and in the morning it's two facades because it's a triangle, it's on a virtually triangular site. It's both of its facades, the one south facing, the one more sort of northeast facing, both are lit by the sun, and that's the best time to take it. I took this photograph on an older iPhone. It came out really superbly because the sun was behind me, and on that day the light was very, very bright and sharp because there was very little dust in the atmosphere. But it is possible to take that building later in the day, as in this photograph, but that would be more a kind of special effect, maybe getting a more moody sort of effect. But for a standard photograph of a building, you need to have the sun behind you. The sun needs to be shining on the facade with no shadows, preferably with no shadows, or maybe just smaller shadows if they can't be avoided. Conversely, in Manchester, the town hall is an afternoon building. At least that's the main famous facade, the main entrance of the town hall, because it faces west towards Salford. And so you can only take the picture of the town hall in the afternoon, in afternoon sunlight. Just doesn't really work in the morning. Okay, another example from northwest England, Liverpool's Three Graces. They are facing roughly southwest, and they look magnificent in the afternoon light, but they're not so magnificent in the morning light. The afternoon is always best. As the afternoon wears on, you can take them till quite late because there are no buildings in front. And over in Dublin, the Custom House, now that's a south-facing building, and so you can take that pretty much throughout the day. The facade faces directly south, overlooking the river, and its companion building further up the River Liffey, the Four Courts, and they were both designed by the architect James Gandon. That's also a day building. It's facing south. You can take it pretty much throughout the day. What happens if you have a building that faces north? This can be a problem. In Liverpool, the Liverpool Institute building is on a fairly narrow street and it's facing directly north. And I have photographed it a few times and had problems because the facade is mostly in shadow. And so what I've done is exposed for the facade, and then I've pointed the camera towards the sky, grabbed a section of sky, and then pasted it in to the overexposed area of sky at the top. And that's how I've been able to get a decent photograph of that building, even though it's facing north and doesn't get direct sunlight very often. This photograph of GMEX, or Manchester Central I should say, the former Manchester Central Station. This photograph was taken in July, early in the morning. Not too early, it was around 8 o'clock I think, if I remember rightly. At that time the sun is shining from the northeast and it is falling directly on the facade. And so that is pretty much the only time that you can take a photograph with direct sunlight of the front of Manchester Central. It's just a short period in the summer when the sun is shining from the north. That's in the morning and in the afternoon. And hopping over to Berlin, the classic photograph of the Brandenburg Gate, really you can only take that in the afternoon because the Brandenburg Gate is facing directly towards the west. It's actually named after the town where the road leads to, the town of Brandenburg. That's why it's called the Brandenburg Gate. And in the morning, well, you can take the other side next to the square, but for the classic, famous view of the Brandenburg Gate, you generally can only do it in the afternoon, in direct sunlight. And so, is there anything that we can do if you have a building that's the facade is in shadow? Well, no, there isn't really, because you can't carry around a giant reflector, and so you just have to wait until the sun is in the right position. And so that more or less concludes this informal tutorial. I'm sitting here on a bench in Bramall Park enjoying the view of the trees and the pond. The light is getting fainter. It's quite cloudy. There is no direct sunlight, but it is still possible to get some good photographs. I just took this one of a panorama of the woods and the pond. I hope that you found it interesting, and if you did, please click on the like button. You can also leave a comment, a sensible comment, and most importantly, please subscribe to the channel, tell other people about it. I'll be posting more slideshow videos and more tutorials like this one very soon. So see you in the next tutorial, and as we say in German, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.